Thank you very much, and Privyet Moskva. A very fine good morning from my side in Munich. It's a still sunny morning here. I hope you have good weather in Moscow as well. I hope with the translation and everything it works out. So thanks to the technicians for setting up everything. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of running the opening keynote today. So without further ado, let's get started. Maybe first things first. So if you're participating online, please open two extra browser tabs. One is basically for this Slido link. So if you go to slido.com and then you enter the hashtag TCM 2020, you will be directed to the questions to this keynote. So if you have any questions, please post them there and we will take them after my keynote. And the second tag, so you can also just use this QR code here. If you have a mobile phone, just take a photograph of that. And I will have another Slido poll coming up. So thanks very much. And we're starting with my keynote, Lessons Learned in Mobile Crowd Testing. Now, my name is Ron Werner. I'm lead QA automation engineer at Join. Join is a video streaming tech startup based in Munich in Germany. And basically, as you know, I haven't been speaking that much in the Eastern European audiences. A little bit about myself to start with. So currently I'm working as lead QA automation engineer at Join. Previously, I worked as a test consultant and team lead at a consultancy. And so all my life, pretty much the testing life, I've been working either in IT or in testing. So I'm married. I've got three lovely sons, and only recently we got a dog as well, so the new family member. So we're quite a large family. I'm Pareto vegan, that's what I like to call it. So basically Pareto efficient, it's 80-20. So 80% vegan is enough. Every now and then I like to eat my meat, and that's it for me then, basically. What I want to share with you is one of the weirdest experiences I've had so far in my testing career was testing in Japanese. So that's 20 years ago when I was doing work in Tokyo. It was one of my jobs during the studies. And you get screens like this, basically. So you don't understand anything. It's pretty similar to when I read through the description of the TestCon webpage in Russian. I didn't know anything, and you have to find your way through. But I still found it very exciting. And I'm sharing this story because my passion is basically in mobile testing. And in Japan, that was when this started. So about 20 years ago, when I was in Japan, I got in touch, or I was basically one of the first to play around with these little keitais. So basically the Japanese were one of the first nations to introduce mobile phones. And these keitais, they were super small. And did you know that the Japanese also actually invented the selfie? So the keitai that I had with a very small screen, it had a resolution of 192 by 96 pixels, and it had a camera as well. And it had one of these rounded curved mirrors. So when actually holding the mobile phone, you could make sure you're placed exactly within the reach of the camera. So that was awesome. That was amazing. And it really spawned my passion for mobile and anything to do with mobile phones. When I got back to Europe at that point in time, remember that's 20 years ago, I got my first mobile phone here in Europe. And I want to share this with you. Are you ready for it? Okay, so watch out, here it comes. Boom! It's an archaic German Siemens C35. It was the size of a brick, and it was just as heavy. So you would have to really, wear safety boots in case you drop it on your foot. Otherwise, you would seriously hurt yourself. So that just as a side story. At those days, none of the mobile phones with cameras, with color displays and anything. This is how I started. But today we want to talk about crowd testing. And, there's always a bit of a misunderstanding about the word. And a lot of people might think about crowd testing, but that's certainly not what we're talking about. Then there's some other misunderstanding as well. So it's not sauerkraut or the crowds. Some people understand cloud testing, and this is all good and fine. And basically, there will be testing needed in a cloud like AWS or in the Google service or Microsoft Azure. You will have cloud testing as well. But what we're talking about is crowd testing. And for many people who are not familiar with this concept, they might have this idea that, crowd testing, oh, it's super stupid, basically. You have absolute beginners. It's basically like a flock of sheep with lots of inexperienced testers, and the sheep just follow one another going, bah, bah. But that's not the case. So in fact, proper crowd testing, when done the way it's supposed to be, is more like this. It's like you're at a concert and there's a DJ. There's one person basically coordinating the music and interacting with the crowds, and the crowd is happy. So our crowd are the testers. So the testers are happy, the test manager is happy, and effectively, at the end of the day, our customer, the person who has a product that needs testing, is also happy. So let's get started with the story. This is my personal story I want to share. When I started my testing career, I was the lonesome tester. I was the only tester. In fact, I wasn't actually a tester when I started. Does that sound familiar to any of you? Maybe it does. So as the one and only tester in a company called Conject at the time. So that's a company which does software for the construction industry. So think about project management for big construction sites, then also the blueprint management that the architects do. Think about communication within the platform, and then having everything in a safe audit trail, because you're very likely to have some conflicts and disputes coming up with all the different workers in a construction project. So everything needs to be documented. And my job in this company, well, it fell into my lap, was basically to coordinate the bi-weekly release checks. So this was released on the web, and we also had a mobile version of this platform. And basically every 2 weeks, we had a release, and so we did a regression test. That regression test internally took about 2 days. And then we wanted to be finished by Friday. So starting Wednesday evening, finished by Friday, so we can release safely over the weekend. Now, what happened was there were no testers in the company. So I had to look for my testers to go through this initial checklist that we had. So I built this up. I started transferring the checklist into proper test cases. And I built everything up, but I had to ask for help. So I was asking people in support, for example, whether they could help with the regression test on Wednesdays. I had to ask our consultants as well, who has time to take part. And also the developers of the system. And, the way it is in support, there's ups and downs. So in rush periods, the support guys who had actually accepted to test, they dropped out. And I was starting to have difficulties finding the testers and getting everyone together. So this led me to the conclusion that we need more resources. And I had the idea, or somebody notified me of the concept of crowd testing. And so I took a closer look at that. So crowd testing, what is it? There are many companies out there doing crowd testing. So if you Google any of these, they have a lot of offer on offer, and it's pretty much always the same system. So with these companies, you get one point of contact as a customer. For you, you're producing some software. This is your test manager within the crowd testing company. And this crowd testing company has a pool of testers all across the world. So the largest companies on the market, they claim to have a pool of over 500,000 testers worldwide. And so basically this is quite nice and charming because A, you can test following the sun around the clock because the testers are located everywhere around the world. And you can define exactly what you want to test and how you want to test it. Because within your crowd of testers, you will have everything you need. So to give you an example, say you want to test, because these companies test everything. I've worked with one crowd testing company who also tested vacuum cleaners. A friend of mine was actually taking part, so you can also register as a tester and take part in crowd testing and earn some money doing so. That's quite interesting, and I would highly encourage you to try that out because you get to see a lot of products before release. It's very interesting, and you can also basically improve your testing skills while doing so. And they crowd test everything. So from vacuum cleaners over different chewing gums, but then they test internationalization, localization as well. They test usability and UX as well. So you name it, they can do it for you. So to give you a concrete example, say you have your pool of testers here within the crowd testing company. And now you say, okay, I need French speakers. So now you're sorting out only the French speakers. So that's just a subset of the whole test crowd bunch. And the crowd testers then, basically you require, for example, French speakers who have a certain OS, say they have an iPhone. So that boils it down to a number of people. And then say you want to test only on iOS 11. So that would boil down and compact it to a smaller set of people you can test with, and you're testing exactly with the people you want to test. So to do that interactively, I prepared a Slido poll here. So if you can, please take a picture of this QR code or join online, go to slido.com, and please enter the hashtag TestCon. So basically, the first question I want to ask you as my audience, you're my crowd now. I want to ask you, who uses a mobile phone? So please keep it going. Log in to slido.com right now. Enter the hashtag TestCon. Okay, that's the first. Excellent. We have at least one mobile phone user. That's great. I'm hoping for more. Okay, so numbers are increasing. Excellent. We have 12, 14, 15, 17. So numbers are growing. That's excellent. So I guess nowadays everyone uses a mobile phone. So some years back, the situation was different. So those of you, pretty much everyone who uses a mobile phone, I want to ask another question. So that's the next question coming up. Which mobile operating system do you use? So you can give multiple answers. So if you have iOS, please go for it, select that. If you have Android or Google phone, then select it. If you have any other OS, please choose the third option. So let's keep that going. So amongst more than 40 participants, Android is prevailing here. Okay. I guess that pretty much fits the current situation on the market with Android prevailing here, also in Russia and in Eastern Europe. So for you who voted Android at the moment, I have the third question now. So you guys are my crowd now. And I want to ask you Android users now, who is using Android 9? If you don't know which operating system version you're using, please don't answer. But if you are using Android 9, please give me your vote now. Okay, we have some Apple fans here. That's 3, that's 5, that's 6. Okay, excellent. So thank you very much for participating in this live experiment. I just wanted to show you the power of crowd testing and how you can find your crowd. So this is basically exactly what will be going on online and live. And so basically, what I want to share with you now is my story of how I found this crowd testing provider, because there are so many on the market. And at first, it was really difficult to find the correct company that worked with our product, with our company, with our engineers. So I want to liken this to a story of flying from Munich to Moscow. So thanks to COVID-19 and thanks also to modern technology nowadays, I'm able to deliver this talk now online. But basically the initial plan was to get a flight from Munich to Moscow. And basically that was the same situation. So this is an analogy to selecting a crowd testing provider. So when trying to get a flight, what do? You go to some booking platforms and you see which flight companies are there. So, and how do you start with that? Well, obviously, you start with a pilot. So this terminology fits quite well here. And basically, well, being an independent or having been an independent consultant, I'm not going to give you the right company names here. So just take it as a story. So basically, I was dealing with 3 different companies. One was the big shot on the market. Let's call it Big Air, the prevailing crowd testing provider. We have another company, a very small company. Let's call it Fly Me. They were pretty new on the market and they had interesting offers. And there was a third company on the market. Let's call them MyJet. So in this pilot, basically, pilot is a starting project. I wanted to test whether they meet our requirements. And so let's go and see how that went with the first company. So we started out with the big shot, Big Air. And we asked them on our platform to basically test our web platform. We provided them with test cases, and what happened was they did exploratory tests. So we thought, okay, that's nice. The results were quite promising as well, but that's not what we wanted. So we wanted them to execute test cases. So after rearranging everything and giving them another go, we asked them, okay, now exploratory testing worked pretty well for you. Why don't you do exploratory tests, but basically test our web platform, but only with Internet Explorer 10 at the time, and please with no Java runtime environment, because we had some trouble with that at the time. What happened was, again, there were some communication problems. So now they did test cases. They didn't test IE10 at all, and they used the JRE. So the communication was pretty bad. It's like if you're on a flight and the crew, the flight attendants, they speak Japanese while the pilots speak Arabic. So, you know, communication is impossible. And what this will inevitably lead to is that the plane will go down. So this is exactly what happened to our first try with our first pilot. We decided against. So what about the second company? Fly Me, a little new company, a startup that we tried. And we gave them the same task. Now, the start was a bit weird. So it was like they started completely off in the wrong direction. What we saw is, well, crowd testing providers, what they provide is basically a platform for you as a customer. So you can store your tests. So that could be exploratory tests, it could be test cases, but you can store them on their platform to provide them to the crowd testers. What we found that the system was still very immature. You could see that on the screen. So they just started and they were using Excel for test cases. So hands up who already or still now uses Excel. I mean, we all started there, right? So it's okay. It's a starting case, but you know, it didn't work and it was maintenance hell. And also on their platform, it was screenshot hell. So all the bugs they reported, the screenshots, they were basically all piled up and not connected to the individual bugs. So when trying to figure out what was going on in one bug report that I got from the crowd testers, we had to search for the individual screenshots. So that was just a big mess. So that didn't work out that well. And finally, we tried MyJet. This was also a promising and upcoming startup, but they had been around in the German capital for a while. And basically for them, everything worked pretty smoothly. So test results were on time. So they managed to really process 400 test cases within 2 days. They had a mature system as well. So it was a pleasure working with their platform. They offered great flexibility as well. So basically, we could use preferred testers. For example, if you see that, hey, some of the testers from the crowd, they deliver really great results, then you can request them again. And you can start the tests 24/7. So basically, at any point in time, you can tell them to start the tests, and they will start over the weekend, in the middle of the night. They just do it. So that was awesome. And we had our candidate. So we get the contract, and we started off. So going back to our analogy with this flight plan, flying from Munich to Moscow, basically everything went smooth. And I want to share with you, now that we're in midair, the starting and the landing, they're always the most critical action when on a flight. And I want to share with you what's been going on in the first 6 months. So we took off, we were going on. And in this graph now, you see on the horizontal axis the time and the success on the vertical axis. So when we started, everything was great because those testers, they managed to find a lot of bugs. So we were swamped with defects that we didn't know about before. And our developers had a great time, so they had to fix a lot of things. So number of bugs increased. But then, whoa, what happened? The success curve went down. And we discovered that quite a few testers, after a while, they delivered wrong results, or in our eyes, wrong results, because the test cases, they were unclear. We were using construction and building terminology. So anyone who's not really versed in construction, who doesn't have experience, didn't quite understand them. So we had to overhaul our test cases, make them clearer. And we also had to overhaul our test data, because we saw that when multiple people test in parallel using the same test account, there were interferences that really screwed up our test results. But we get from bad to worse. So actually, we figured out that if we start a crowd test and in the middle of the run, because there is some new fix coming up and we have to deploy it to the system and we have to restart the crowd test, if we have to do a test data reset, it took us between 6 to 7 hours to actually reset the database and to prepare it so that everyone could start freshly again. So that was a big problem, and it interfered with our time scale. So we also saw that we need to have non-destructive test cases. So these are tests that don't really interfere with the test data. So we can run those tests again and again without interfering with each other. So after doing that, those were the teething problems of the first 6 months. Once we got that sorted, everything was running smoothly and it was a huge success. So obviously, it says success plus invest. So we had to do our homework and to work on our test cases, on our setup, on the tests themselves, and on the infrastructure. So let's get back to our flight plan. So we were in midair, and you know, it can happen that all of a sudden you get into turbulences. And this is what happened after 1.5 years. So basically, we had those in-flight turbulences with our company. And also we ran out of fuel, which is not that good when you're on a plane. Now, what happened? The company we chose, basically the contract ran out. And when we initially got them, they gave us an excellent offer because they were also new on the market and we get a special deal. Now they offered us a continuation of the contract, but basically with much worse conditions. So we would have less flexibility in starting the tests, and it was a price increase of 80%. So that's quite a lot. And we thought, okay, we need to do something. So we had 2 months to come to a solution. So what should we do? Any ideas? Well, you might have thought about it. We will start with yet another pilot. And as 1.5 years had passed, basically all those companies, they were still on the market. So we had Big Air, we had Fly.me, and a new incumbent was on the market as well, Up and Away. I know this looks a little bit like SpaceX from Elon Musk here. Basically, they were quite promising. So we had a look at all these 4 companies again and did another pilot. So what happened in the second pilot with Big Air? Now we did mobile testing of our app. What we discovered, unfortunately, that the app got altered. So after uploading the app to their platform, they included their own framework to enable the testers to automatically take screenshots and videos, but that resulted in really bad performance. So the app was 40% slower than without this change. And again, they didn't deliver on time. So they didn't manage to run all 400 test cases within 2 days. So that was not very promising. We did another test with FlyMe. What we found here that they only offered few devices, not the devices we wanted to test against. Also, they didn't manage to finish the tests on time, so they took way longer than 2 days. We had re-signing problems, especially with Apple. So nowadays, this has improved a lot. But a few years back, signing an app and distributing it was quite painful. And I will talk a little bit about this later. But basically, they had problems with signing the app. And so it was a huge effort to get that done. And their platform also still wasn't quite involved. So that was also rather a no. And we took a look at Up and Away, the new promising company. So they had a nice platform, nice usability, best UX. You could import test cases automatically. They had nice pricing because they were new in the market. But what happened was they got eaten. So Big Air just snatched them from the market and rebranded them under their company name. They binned this new platform and just took the customer base. So that was really a bummer, and we had to think what to do now because there weren't that many alternatives. So I can tell you what happened next. So we talked again to MyJet. We had some further negotiation rounds, and basically as we were testing bigger contingents now. So basically we had the web tests, plus we had the mobile clients as well. So mobile web plus the apps for iOS and Android. We basically had a bigger volume. We managed to get much better terms. We still had to pay some more. So it was about 30% more we had to pay, but we knew them already. It was a great team. They had all the mobile devices that we needed to test on. They didn't have any of these resigning problems. And, it just worked so far. So this all went quite nicely. So after these turbulences, basically, we managed to go for an in-flight fuel action again. And we managed to finally do a safe landing on our airport. So this is the story. And I want to share with you now 5 lessons that I learned when looking for crowd testing providers. And I want to share with you what you can do and what you should do when also thinking about crowd testing. So lesson number 1, you have to do your research. So basically, take a look at the different companies and check whether they have some test or test case management system. Take a close look at their platform, whether that works or performs. Try to get a trial first, so you get a first look. If you work with exploratory tests or test charters, see whether you can upload them and which way they use. Also take a look at the pricing model, obviously. So there are different companies, different models out there. There are companies who charge you by the test case that is done. There are companies that offer you flat rates. There are companies that offer different combinations depending on what you want to test. So take a look at that, do your research. Take special look at the tester motivation. So this was one of the bigger issues that we found, because if testers get paid by the bug, then obviously this is human nature. You want to find as many bugs as possible, even if maybe they've been raised already, so those ones are duplicates, or it's not really a bug, but you'll post it anyway. And I want to share one example of those things that you want to avoid. So you see here, this is a screenshot from one of the discussions where I rejected one of the bugs. And basically, there was a dispute going on between the test manager on the crowd testing company side, myself, and the actual tester. So the tester here says, I really don't have the time to go through all of this because of $4. So they revealed how much they pay per accepted bug. And, basically what happened was the tester did not fully follow the test instructions, and therefore I had to reject the bug. But, this is nothing you want to get into as a client. I'm paying for the services, so this should be shielded off by the test manager on their end. So tester motivation is important. Check out, are they getting paid by the bug, or do they get a basic salary? And then on top of that, if they discover bugs and these ones are accepted by the customer, they get extra bonus, then that's fine. What I also recommend is to register as a tester yourself to the platform. So basically, you can see exactly the view that a tester has. You can see the testing community. So within the testing community, for example, how is everything organized? And therefore, you get a view from the inside as well. One important thing is as well, you get some tests done and some bugs are raised, but check please whether bug retests are included or if you have to pay extra for that. Because obviously the time span is very short. You want to have your regression test done within, say, 2 days. Any fixes by the developers then should be retested by exactly the same tester who raised it. So if you have somebody raising a bug on a Samsung S8 on a specific network within a specific country that only occurred there, then obviously this tester should also retest this bug. So check up for that. And we will go to our second point here. You need to do your housekeeping. This is what I mentioned earlier when I showed the curve. So you need to have concise test cases or exploratory tests or test charters. So basically make sure that your test cases are structured nicely and that anyone can understand what needs doing. Also, you should have distinct and independent test data. So use non-destructive tests as much as possible and make sure that if your tests meddle with the test data, or with the database you're testing against, that the tests don't interfere with each other. This is a lesson we had to learn the hard way. Next one is use non-destructive tests, as explained before. And make sure that you have a resettable test data and it doesn't take so long to reset the whole system if you need that. So we also had to learn that the hard way. So that leads to point number 3. Always start with a pilot. So initially you want to test the crowd testing provider. So a pilot is basically a small defined project with a number of tests. And after that, you can see whether they meet your requirements and whether also the communication works well and the test results are correct. So go with a small scope. It's a worthwhile investment, but it makes it very clear whether you're with the right provider or not. You can dry run the communication channels as well, because you will have to be in touch with the test manager. So the company we're currently using at Join, for example, we're using a Slack channel. So it's very easy and convenient to contact them to start a test, for example, or to contact the test manager in case there are any issues or any changes. And also check how you can communicate with the testers themselves. Because it's very important to get hold of testers in case you need some extra information. So just imagine you get a bug report, but you're missing screenshots, for example, or videos, or you want the device logs attached as well. So how easy is it to get in touch with the tester and still request that? And usually they allow you to do that within the platform. So you get everything attached to the bug report as well. Get a grip on the response times as well, because if you want to get hold of a tester, it's important for you, obviously, because bugs need to be fixed before release, that the response time is short, and also that you can start tests quickly. So this is very important to have flexibility here, and you will see that with your pilot. Also, check, especially for mobile crowd testing, the availability of the target operating systems and the devices. So many providers out there claim to have a lot of devices. Take a look at their lists, check it out for yourselves, and make sure they're using real devices, real users out there, no emulators or simulators, because you want them to test on the real thing. The fourth advice is the what I call appy end. So that's a bit of a pun here. So everything related to the apps. So basically, check out, are they actually testing the same app? Or after uploading the app, are they adding some additional frameworks? So that should be avoided at all costs. We realized, as I showed before, there were some performance deteriorations. So make sure that the crowd testers out there are testing the same app that you want to release. App distribution is also very important. So on Android, less of a problem than with iOS. So there are many systems out there. So you have Hockey app, there's TestFlight, there's Firebase as well. Maybe they have their own system to distribute the app. So I can remember that there were big problems with iOS at the time when we started out. But check it out. How well can that be done and how easy is that? Also check again the resigning mechanism. Nowadays, it's easy if you have an enterprise license, but I want to share with you one example of what you don't want to encounter with one of those smaller companies that we did a pilot with. So what you can see here is the provisioning profile that we get from the crowd testing company, because for some reason, they didn't manage to sign the app accordingly to provide it to their testers. And so we had to do the signing for them. And here you can see highlighted basically all the other companies that they were testing for. So, you know, resigning, well, resigned with resignation. That's all I can say. So basically here, we want to avoid this and stay on a professional level. You know, as a customer, I shouldn't be made aware of all of this. Then an important question, especially for mobile, is can you do update tests? So testing the app as is okay, but one important aspect, as you might know when you have tested mobile, is an update test. So installing a newer version on an existing one, will the customer data be kept? For example, any preferences, any settings, my username, password combination, once I'm logged in, will that be kept? And that's also an important question to ask if they can do that. Another question are specific target groups. So you might have A/B testing or ABC testing. So can they do that? Can they provide different target groups? For example, if you want to do localization testing, you need different languages as well. And you have different mobile target groups as well. Can they do that and do they provide that? Then finally, you might have some specific problematic devices, you know, some of these low-end devices where you know there's always trouble. Can they provide them? And do they have users ready for your test that can test against these devices? The final point is communication. So here, basically, it's all about, is communication easy? So try that out on all channels. I remember with the company that we started out on, I had a direct mobile phone number of our test manager on the side of the crowd testing company. So it was easy to just call them to speak about anything. Is there a Slack channel? Is there any other easy communication channel that you can use? Then the feedback cycles, obviously. So the bug reports, how are the bug reports? Are they well formulated? Can everyone understand what's going on? How's the communication between the test manager and the testers? And how easy is also the tester communication between you as a client and the testers? And also the tester feedback. So sometimes you want to know, hey, are our test cases good? What's your opinion on that? So also check for that, whether you get this valuable feedback. Then obviously, are retests possible? Do you have to pay for them? And how fast are they possible? So is it easy to get hold of the same tester again? Finally, the bug report quality. Obviously, if you get a bug report, a lot of these platforms and providers out there, they offer you, or they have the possibility or encourage actually the crowd testers to do a video of the test case. So you see exactly what's going on. And this is what makes up an excellent bug report, to have the video, the screenshots maybe as well as the log files. So this is really awesome. And some providers out there offer Jira integration, so you can use the test cases that you have, or basically transfer any bug tickets into your own Jira. There's a Jira plugin, for example, that you can use. and some offer an API integration so that you can integrate crowd testing into your CI. So basically, as soon as you have a new release candidate coming up, you could automatically trigger a crowd test using the API. Good, so this is the wrap up. If you want to take any screenshots or pictures, this is probably now the place to be and the slide to do it. So do your research, do your housekeeping, start with a pilot, look at the appy side of things, everything related to apps, check out the communication. And I have 1/6 bonus point for you. You can do your own beta. This is basically setting up your own crowd. And that's what we did at Join, the company I'm currently with. So Join is a video streaming app. You can see here it's rated among the top apps next to Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. So basically what we do upon, what we did upon launch and what we still keep doing is building our own beta community. What is a beta? You can basically provide early access before the real release, and then ask real users to test your product to get valuable feedback. Now, about this approach, there are some downsides, obviously, but there is very much positive that comes out. So one downside is you have little control over what is tested. That's what we've seen. You have your beta testers out there, but it's really hard to get them to test exactly those parts that you want to be tested. Retesting is really hardly possible. So our customer support department, they will get in touch with trying to get users that reported a bug, trying to retest, for example, or to get more feedback, but it's really hard. And so summing up, it's a gigantic communication effort. But if you're prepared to do that, it's really great because you get early and relevant feedback, and you're starting to build a sustainable feedback community. So this is really valuable, and that's what we have started with and what we're still doing in addition to using crowd testing. Now, why is crowd testing ideal for mobile? I'm starting to close up now. So wrapping up, you have real people out there. It's students testing, it might be housewives testing, it might be pensioners testing, really pretty much everyone. So it can represent your product relevant user base. So those people you want to test, a specific age group, for example, or people with special requirements. Maybe if you want to test accessibility, elderly people, you can do that. And you have a real world device lab. You have the good, bad, and ugly. So you have all the low-end devices, you have the high-end devices, you have them out there. And it's no emulators or sterile lab conditions. It's testing out in the wild under real network conditions, not using perfect Wi-Fi and a cleaned up reset device where no other apps are installed. No, it's the real thing. So finally, you have access to mobile networks and this realistic smartphone or tablet hardware setup. One example I want to show before closing, why is crowd testing ideal for mobile? And I have two videos from bug reports that we got. So this is from our crowd testers, basically, and I just want to show you the first example. So you can see here, this was one of our earlier versions. You can see the video playing in the background. The user is switching now between another video service and ours. And this is one thing that we didn't test for every single device, is whether the buttons on your headphones actually work for pausing and playing the playback. And we realized that for some devices it works, for some headphones it works, for others it didn't. That's where crowd testing really helped us to identify those problematic headsets. The second example I want to show is as follows, and this is quite a big thing. So you can see here, this is one of the ads that are shown. You can see a countdown on the lower right. So after the ads, the video should start. And what happens here actually is super surprising, and I've never seen this before. Now the video should start, but boom, the device restarts. This is a Galaxy J5. We don't have this device in our own device farm among the devices that we have, so we weren't able to reproduce that. So thanks to crowd testing, we managed to find this problem in one of the markets, and we managed to find the root cause and then sort it out. So on a very final note, I want to leave you with two quotes. One is by Benjamin Franklin. So the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten. So what I want to say here is basically, even if you get a cheap provider, or no, put it the other way, even if you pay quite a bit for your crowd testing services, don't forget that you get valuable feedback from your relevant user crowd out there, from real world devices out in the wild. So even if you have to pay for that, it's definitely worth it. And the second one is me quoting myself. So crowd testing is only successful as part of an integrated test strategy. What do I want to say with this? Basically, don't rely simply on crowd testing. So it can only be ever an addition to your test strategy. So you still need your live UI tests, you need your test automation, you need proper unit tests as well. So test internally as well. Try to set up your own dog feeding crowd internally inside the company. Try to set up your beta crowd as well when releasing a mobile product. But basically, don't rely on crowd testing on its own. Good. And if everything works out and you've managed to find your crowd testing provider, then crowd testing should look exactly like this. So basically, cheering crowd, happy testers, a test manager basically keeping out all the stuff, all the noise that you don't want to hear, and helping you in your crowd test to get relevant and fast results. So that leaves me to say thank you. And if there are any questions, please use this link. Go to slido.com, use the hashtag TCM2020. And I think now it's time to take on these questions. Okay. So I'm switching over now. Okay. Thank you very much on the English questions so far. So let's take the first one. Dennis, how do you debug on a user's device? Sometimes it's hard to find root cause without having the developer as close to the bug as possible. That's right. If you don't have the device in access, it can be very hard. What we usually do is to ask for as much information as possible from the crowd testers. So get device logs and anything else that will help the individual developer to find out. Sometimes our devs provide the tester a specific app build where some extra debug statements are in the build. So it's easier to find out where the problem is. But yeah, you're right. Debugging on this specific user's device is really tough. Good. I hope this answered your question. One thing I can mention as well, if you need to debug, there are platforms out there, to name a few. There's Test Object, there's Source Labs as well. They provide this kind of service as well. So you have a real device that you can access remotely, and you can also debug your app using that remotely. Okay, next one. What if you don't have zero bug policy? Pavel, if you have hundreds bugs open with medium and low priority, how crowd testers will know about them and don't dump them? Okay, good question, Pavel. Well, basically, what we have at the moment with the company that we're with, basically, you can issue a list of known problems, so the known bugs, and therefore the testers know, okay, this is a known issue. It might be a bug that will not be fixed. So they know also that if they report this bug again, you know, this will be filtered out. So that's how they will know about it. And then also the test manager here helps, because usually that person also sorts out and filters out any duplicates. Next one. Dennis, can you rate the top 3 crowd testing providers? Well, I could, but I want to stay on a professional level. So basically, I can tell you the company we're using at the moment, right now at Join. They're called Test.io. We're very happy with them. But the other companies that were mentioned as airlines, I don't really want to reveal who they are. If you want, you can get hold of me on my Twitter handle or my email address. Then we can have a private chat. But basically, it's tough rating those providers in general, because you need to make sure that they provide the services that are relevant to your product. So if they don't provide mobile crowd testing, but they are doing an awesome desktop testing service, they might be the right provider for you. If you need mobile services, then you might need to look on. So basically, do a pilot and try out different crowd testing providers. Good. I hope that answered this question. Let's keep on moving. Can crowd testing completely replace in-house testing? It could. I've seen cases where this worked actually. But basically, then your crowd testers need to work very closely together also with your developers. So there are companies out there who offer this. There is, for example, Testlio. So what they do is they offer kind of a crowd testing, but with testing experts. And so they provide these services combined with a direct integration into your development team. So it could, but I would advise to be careful with that. You still need your developer unit tests. You need your integration tests. If you have multiple backend services as well, they need to be mocked and tested or tested in the live environment. Next one by Andre. Hi, could Apple's Test Flight app help with testing beta and collecting necessary info as bug report? Or is it still a pain in communication with the user? Yeah, Test Flight, you can use that for distribution of the beta app. Basically, any bug reports, basically you will get a message or an email. The communication between the testers, you need to set that up separately. So Test Flight doesn't help you that much here. So it can be painful. So it's quite good to actually know who your testers are. And still, even if you have your beta community, you might have an email address, but the user might never get back if you have some questions. So it's tough. Next question by, sorry, I cannot read that, but anyway, thank you for your question. Do violations of author rights take place during crowd testing? If you think about, copyright infringement and things like that, pre-release apps that shouldn't be distributed, what all of the crowd testing providers that I worked with now have done is provide non-disclosure agreements. So basically, all of the testers need to sign that. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee that something will be leaked, but if that happens, then it's within the responsibility of the crowd testing company, and they will have to deal with that. Good. Eugenia, do you practice bug bounty program? Good question. Now we don't actually. So we have a video streaming app. It's not really that safety critical. So no, we don't have a bug bounty program. It might be interesting for larger companies and when you have safety critical apps. That's right. So next one, Yevgeny, why you prefer crowd testing against usual freelance testers? Well, you can use freelance testers. That's fine. We also have, or used to have, freelance testers here on the team. It's always the same problem that when you have a freelance tester, this tester works together with you, and after a while working with the same app, they get blinkers. So you get this tunnel vision. and testers tend to not see things on the side. When doing crowd testing, the charming thing is that basically you have new testers on each of the test runs and basically a fresh set of eyes. So you get a lot of bugs that you might know about already, but also you get these fresh bugs and things that nobody has thought about. And therefore also I get better device coverage. I get real world testing out there with real mobile networks, people testing while sitting on the tube, on the train, while in the car, under bad network conditions, under good network conditions. So that's why crowd testing, in my eyes, especially for mobile, is ideal. Thanks. Next question. What's the difference to have a large testing department or crowd testers? For crowd testing, you need to have testers from different companies. Okay, yeah. I think the previous question already aimed in the same direction. So it's, losing the blinkers basically and getting a lot of sets of fresh eyes. That's the advantage. Thank you very much. Okay, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure. And I think we have still 3 minutes to go. So SST, crowd testing and exploratory testing is not work. If yes, then how to organize the process? If no, then why? I'm not sure what this question is aimed at. You mean that it's not work for me as a client, basically engaging a crowd testing company? Or you mean that crowd testing, being a tester and working for a crowd testing company? This is not work. Then I would disagree with that. I think it is work. So working for a crowd testing company, it's very interesting. You can basically get new apps and new products before release, and you can hone your testing skills as well. So you can improve on the side next to your normal day job. As a company, as a client, basically, it's still work because I need to coordinate that. Right now, we have bi-weekly release cycles for our individual platforms, so then intertwined. So we have Android TV releases, we have Android releases, iOS releases, tvOS releases, we have web and OTT releases, and basically every week we need at least one crowd testing run. So this is a bit of a coordination effort, specifically seeing that bugs are being reported. You need to prioritize them and then also get them worked on. Good. I hope this answered your question. Thank you for this. The next one, is crowd testing more efficient than testing performed by a staff member? Well, it's more broad scaled, I would say, and in the long run, you get a lot of new bugs that you haven't been aware of. More efficient in terms of pricing, maybe. So what I can tell you is, if you want to have a crowd testing service for 2 or 3 products, say one Android app, one iOS app, and a web application that you have, the costs of this will be probably equivalent to one full-time test engineer position on a medium level per year. So you see, okay, there are significant costs to be calculated on the one hand, but on the other hand, you get a much broader spread, and you can also test specifically for those devices you want to include in your test run. So you have a lot of control, you have a lot of variety. So in a way, it's more efficient and it's more broad, but still, obviously, we find a lot of bugs internally as well. So the last question, if we still have time, it's 11:05 Moscow time. Have you personally participated in crowd testing as a tester? Yes. Did you like it? Yes, I enjoyed that because you get to see the other side as well. And as mentioned many times before, you get to test individual products that are pre-release and that will get launched to the market, or maybe not at some later stage. Great.
Все. Друзья, аплодисменты для Рона. Ron, thank you very much for your speech. It was great, and this applause for you.